Welcome to the Real Deal Show, presented by bodyboarding.com and Tribe Boards. Hey folks, Real Deal Podcast, Jay Reale here with yet another episode. And if you don't know who this man is, just look at his t-shirt. JL Designs. This is the legendary Jimmy Linville. And I will say this, there are very few bodyboard shapers left in the world, and certainly in the United States, very few, even less here in the U.S. This guy is a master. He has shaped boards for me. He has shaped some incredible boards for other well-known professional bodyboarders. And Jimmy has been around since day one. He is a master with the shaping tools. So, Jimmy, we're stoked to have you here. Thank you for meeting with me today.
Thanks, Jay. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
A little bit overcast today. Kind of cold. I don't know what's going on with the weather, but we're still here. The ocean's not going nowhere.
That's right. So, I basically want to get into this, Jimmy, and talk about your history. I've known you for many, many years. We used to compete together in some of the contests way back in the day. We're talking maybe even 30 years ago. So,
yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, so tell me about your history. Like, where did you grow up? How did you, get into bodyboarding?
I started bodyboarding in Oceanside. One of my really good friends, Hector, he was a bodyboarder, and he saw some videos of Mike Stewart and these guys riding Bonsai Pipeline, and I was riding a bodyboard too. We didn't have slick bottoms yet. So we were kids, and we were like, we need to get some slick bottom boards. And then we looked around, we're like, good, they're expensive. Then I'll tell you, no one really knows the story. One of my really good friends lives up the street from me, Joey Dietzman. His uncle was Bobby Zabad. And he goes, BZ's starting to open their factory. I'm going to sell my Mach 7.7. So I go, I'll buy that thing, $80. I bought it. I got a slick bottom board. Now I'm in the game. Then I go to my buddy's house. He's got videos of Mike Stewart doing no-hand 360s and stuff like that. And we were like freaking out. Then next thing you know, it's every morning at the beach, 6:30. Drop us off at the beach. No food, surf all day. Then one day, the Maury Boogie contest came to Oceanside, where we grew up surfing. So there we are on the beach. We're sitting next to Mike Stewart. And I remember this. There used to be a company called Balin Leashes. You remember those?
Sure.
I think Mike even rode for them in the beginning. So we had the Balin leash. I had a Mach 7.7. Maury Boogie was having a contest there. We were pumped. We were grommets. We saw Mike Stewart. So everything we did was mock this guy trying to surf. And then all of a sudden we saw Kisasaki, Jack the Ripper, Dropning. That was just a game changer right there. We're like, whoa, these guys can turn on a bodyboard like a surfer can turn on a surfboard. And that was a game changer. And then it kind of like bleeded into Oceanside growing up. The industry started there. I had friends of mine working in the factories. I had a really good friend of mine, Dorian Delicon. She goes, hey, you want a tour of the BZ factory? We go down there. She gives me a whole tour. I see all these guys I know growing up in town working at these factories. And then years went by. I started competing. I started doing really well. I started being one of the top riders in town. And then all of a sudden I had an opportunity to work and build bodyboards. And as soon as that happened, I jumped on it. And everything I'd known from the past, competing, meeting guys in the industry, different companies making boards, it just all stuck in my head. So when I started making bodyboards, all this stuff was stuck in my head. And it just kind of morphed from there, you know what I mean? It's actually a small niche community, the bodyboard and surf community. There's only coast on so many places. So wherever you find coast, you're going to find people surfing and riding waves. So once I figured that out, I go, well, I know I'm going to do it for the rest of my life. I didn't know I was going to be working, making them. It just ended up happening that way, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to this day and age, I got to thank for my knowledge of what I know is those times in the early 80s and the 90s, watching the bodyboard evolution come into our lives and create our lives.
Yeah.
I always told Tom Maury I thank him to this day, because without the bodyboard, who knows what our lives would be like.
Yep.
Who knows where. I tried riding a kneeboard. I tried riding a surfboard. but just a bodyboard, I took to it, you know, and it was kind of natural. And I tell guys that all the time, you know, everything with good surfing and stuff comes natural. You don't want to force it. And through practice, everything makes perfect, you know.
Yeah, so, you know, this is the 50th anniversary of the invention of the boogie, Tom Morey. And you mentioned, you know, he started basically producing boards in Carlsbad on Oak Street. Yeah. There was a little factory there, and you know, some of the names that worked at that original factory, Bobby Zabad, who you touched on earlier, Debbie Caldwell, who now owns Custom X and still owns and operates Custom X. I would say, you know, as far as bodyboarders owning companies, Debbie probably has the record for owning a bodyboard company for the longest time and still being involved in the sport. How did your relationship with Debbie materialize?
Well, how it created first, you know, I got a job working at BZ and I got over the hump of learning how to make a board, and then, you know, I heard Custom X was hiring, and word of mouth, everyone knows it's all who you know. So I knew a couple guys in there, and I went in there, you know, and I got hired. And when I got hired, next thing you know, it morphed into like, hey, Jimmy's a writer. I get to make my own boards. Then all of a sudden, my own designs went into their board lines. And then all of a sudden, you know, one day I go, you know, I'm paying half my bills selling, you know, I make my board and I need some money. I'll sell at the end of the month to pay my rent. Then after about 5 or 6 years, maybe more, of doing that, I go, I can probably start just building my own boards and my own brand and then being able to pay my bills and pay my rent. Well, it morphed into JL Designs. You know, 20 years later, I'm still doing it, working on my own. So at Custom X, you know, it was kind of a make it or break it. First, you know, you work for a company, they don't want you to leave because you're an asset to the company.
Yep.
But at the same time, they know if they can help you leave and keep you there, we can work together. So to this day, you know, I do help Custom X with some of their work. We work with each other. But it did really, it was a fine balance of like, everyone knows it. Do you want to be stuck in one job, or do you want to go do your own thing? Yep. So I went and did my own thing, and it ended up being successful. I'll never forget the first week I opened my own shop. I go, okay, now I got to work on making the rent for this month, right?
Right.
So one of my buddies from Hawaii orders a batch of boards. I think it's like $3,000. I go, cool, there's my rent. Okay, that's the first month. Okay, the second month goes by, and next thing you know, there's 10 years go by. Me and Tom Morey have been working together, so it's just kind of like it all transformed into something. Everybody says this thing, everything's meant for a reason. Yep. So I think it just transformed into that thing like, well, if whatever was going to happen in my life, it was going to happen. I'm not going to change it, no matter how hard I work, how little I work, how much I don't want to work. We all go through those things in our head. So that's where leaving Custom X, that's kind of how it started. I just kind of realized I had something that I could run with, and I did it, and I'm still here, you know. So I got to thank Custom X. They are part of my success, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, so, I mean, you've definitely hit all those points. You know, you worked for BZ initially. I'm sure they showed you the basics of how to build a bodyboard.
Oh, yeah.
Then you went into Custom X already with the skills.
Already.
And you refined them at Custom X, and then you started JL Designs, and you've been doing that, you said, how many years now?
Guy, I think we're going on almost 20 years now.
Amazing.
Well, let me think, 7 years, and yeah, about almost 20 years.
Wow.
But it didn't start 20 years ago. I started building that years before I started.
Oh, yeah.
And not to mention just building my name. So if you walk around town, Oceanside, San Clemente, anywhere in Southern California, you're going to meet guys that I know that knew me 30 years ago, and they'll say, yeah, 30 years ago they got their board from me. This is before I started making money at it.
Yep.
It was to the point where I could go to Seal Beach and some of my really good buddies over there go, hey, I need a board. I go, cool, I'll bring you one. No, don't pay me no money here, just write it, you know. I was fortunate growing up to where I didn't have to pay for a lot of things. I was a good bodyboarder. I knew a lot of people. So when you have a little bit of a talent, things tend to come your way. You know what I mean?
Yep.
If you give somebody free ice cream, they might give you some free ice cream back.
Yeah.
So I kind of built my life on that, and that's one reason, everybody knows when you're local, you have benefits to where you live. So we've been living here all our life. Locals have benefits. So I've been able to kind of use that to the benefit for JL Designs. All the people that are around me benefit my business. So, and not to mention, it's a good factor to be in the water. I can't tell you how many. I thought of this the other day. Big companies come out and they sponsor people.
Yep.
Well, why? Because the corporate people in these companies don't surf.
Yep.
So they're not going to get the word out there. So if you're in the water, you're hanging out with your customers.
Yep.
And that's a better camaraderie than anything is surfing with. There's nothing better than surfing with your bros. And now when you surf with your customers, it makes it even better,
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of, it's led up to me now to what I'm doing, Obviously, I don't surf as much anymore, but we're getting swell.
Yeah.
I'll be out there.
Well, that talk about your surfing, but you're into fishing too. So it seems like you're all in when it comes to stuff in the ocean.
Well, yeah, in the ocean, growing up, I always looked at the ocean as like, this is where I want to be, whether it's fishing, surfing, or just hanging out at the beach. We all hear these things. People that don't surf all the time, they go to Hawaii, they're like, oh, it's so beautiful. But you and I know, Jay, any place on the coast where the land meets the ocean's beautiful.
Yep.
Every coastline looks the same as another. Now, we can get picky and say the waves aren't that good here. I'm going to go down the beach. But that's us,
Right.
But yeah, I fish a lot all my life growing up bodyboarding, traveling from here to Cabo. I paid attention to the fish reports in the ocean and the weather. And then one day I go out, let's take a break from this surfing and we'll just start fishing for a couple seasons. And I end up getting that wired. And then all of a sudden fishing and surfing coincides together. We're going on a surf trip and I got my fishing rods. Or we're going on a fishing trip and I got my board.
So you're
because
covered.
No matter where you go, I'll never forget when I was younger, I think it might have been an article Pat Caldwell wrote. He went somewhere where there was not supposed to be no waves, and he goes, all of a sudden there was a wind swell, and all of a sudden there's this 1 or 2 foot wave, and it's perfect, and he didn't bring his board.
Always
and I'll
bring
never
your
forget
board.
that article. I go, you got to bring your board all the time.
Yep.
No matter where you go. I'll never take a vacation where there's no ocean.
Yeah.
To me, that's just weird.
Me too.
You got to have surf around you, you know?
Yeah.
And if fishing, you like fishing, that's a plus because you're going to eat good. And you're going to have a lot of fun when the waves aren't there.
I feel the same about the vacation thing. Jimmy, just switching gears here. You've shaped for a lot of different people. Was there anyone in particular that was really difficult to shape a board for? They were super crazy picky, and maybe talk about some of the pro names who you've shaped boards for.
Well, that's a tough one because when it really comes down to, there's a lot of guys that are picky about their shapes. And I would say more along the lines of these old pros, or you might call them has-beens or used-to-be's.
Right, yeah.
They come back, they come around, they say, well, I never paid for a board, or I had a special shape. I like to do this little tweak on the board. I don't want to put any names out there, but there's a... That's a tough question, Jay.
Yeah. You don't want to incriminate yourself.
The hardest person I had to help make a board, I think, was not too long ago, was Chad Barba.
Okay.
He was really worried about the color of his board.
Oh, wow.
And then the stringer of the board was too stiff. And then it was a board we had reshaped that was 20 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I go, the thing's going to fall apart. So I would have made him a brand new board for free, but he doesn't want a brand new board.
Wow.
So you get some people in life that are difficult in life. They might be difficult to make a board. Yeah. So there's all those kind of factors. But even some of my good friends, my best friend Dave Long, I'll never forget when we were younger, he goes, hey, my board it has a 1/2 inch of reverse rocker in the tail.
Wow, come on, Dave.
And he goes, I was hanging up at the top. I was getting pitched. I go, Dave, you need to kick harder. Maybe it's your fins.
Oh, man.
So there is a little bit of difficulty, but the more guys get educated on how the board's made, the more picky they get.
Yep.
And then it comes down to myself. I'll be truthful. There's fatigue when it comes to shaping boards, just like any kind of work. You can overwork yourself. Shaping a board kind of takes a long time when you have a lot of details in it, you know?
Sure.
The guy wants channel rails, he wants channels, the equipment's not working right. There's all kinds of factor that goes into shaping boards. I read this article on these surfboard shapers. I go, wow, this guy's right. There's like 10 steps into making a board. So you need to get every 10 steps right. There's not one step that you can jeopardize because it affects the next step. So, and at one point, it's like painting a canvas. Once you put the paint on there, it's on there. You can't take it off. So you got to get it right the first time from the very beginning. So that's when it comes down to dealing with customers and then dealing with the way to make the board. So there's a lot of factors. I can go on and on the different types of boards to make and how difficult they are. Material issues.
Well, environmental factors too, right? Is it a hot and humid day or a cold and dry day? That affects how the board comes out of the laminator, right?
We're picky, okay? Like when I rode for Maury Boogie, worked for Maury Boogie, they'd give us free boards. We'd go into the factory and pick these boards out, right? We'd go through 100 boards and I go, no, there's not one I like. And they look at you and they go, what do you mean there's not one? There's 100 there. I go, well, all the rockers are wrong. And this one's kind of thick. And those are in the 80s and 90s where they didn't know that those quality things in the bodyboard is what we liked. Well, we're the generation that picked the way the rocker was supposed to be.
Right.
Picked the way the shapes were supposed to be.
Yep.
When they first made the bodyboard, there was no input for them. It was either you rode a longboard or a surfboard or you rode this boogie board.
Yes.
So
there was no quality control back then.
Jay Reale is one of the guys kind of to blame. He's like the pros that made the sport.
Guilty.
But at the same, Jay, your surfing's honed in. You know what you want in a board.
Yep.
And then if you look at your riding, it shows. And I tell the guys that all the time. You can pick up the board here on the concrete and feel it and flex it around, but you never know how it rides till you get on that wave.
Yep.
And every board rides on a wave, but put yourself in the position where you're like, I'm 5 feet back in the barrel and I could see the opening, but I can't make it out.
Yeah.
Well, it could be you, it could be the board. Right. It could be the line you drew on the wave. So there's all kinds of different factors, and that's where experience comes in. So when it comes to technicality on guys being picky about the boards, sometimes it's themselves, or sometimes they're dealing with something themselves they're trying to better in their surfing. So if you look at all those realms on how to make the guy's magic board, you got to look at all those things that come into play.
Interesting.
Now,
you're still learning, it sounds like.
I'm still learning. I've been dealing with a lot of things, building soft surfboards, building flow boards, bodyboards,
rescue
sleds. Recently, we're starting to get in and do some skimboard stuff, and it all comes down to what works best for that type of riding. You know what I mean? And over the years of me building all these different stuff, I realize I know so much more than average board maker because all these mistakes I've done over the years and corrected them to make them right. Because I'll be honest, when someone pays almost $300 for a board, a custom board, it's on me.
Yeah.
I got to sleep at night with that conscious on my mind. Okay, took this guy's money. He's expecting to have this killer board, so I need to focus on it. Customers will come in. I go, hey, everything's got to be quiet. This guy paid $300 for his board. I need to concentrate here. Yeah. So that's when it comes down to, and then I can understand the technicality for riders. When they're technical, some riders are frustrating, and that's when I gotta really pick and choose my work time. If I got a headache, I'm not feeling good, or what if the waves are firing and I'm antsy and I want to leave and go to work? Yes. I can't work on this guy's custom board. It ain't gonna come out the 100%.
I hear you. Yes.
The perfect example, I made you a board one time and I looked at it. I go, man, I know how Jay surfs. I don't like this board. And I said, I text you, I'm going to make you another one. So you can
I remember that.
You can pick between the both of them. And you pick the one you liked, and then you'll end up liking it. So for me, growing up in the 80s till now, like you said, nitpicking how the boards are made, dealing with difficult riders, hard to shape, it made me learn that I got to second guess myself too every time I make something. I can't just be like, okay, you know, I'm the best. I made it. You ride it. No,
right.
That's not it. I still have to correct myself. Yeah, I guess in my head for shaping boards, I have a spell check.
Yeah.
So once I use a spell check, go, okay, the board's not right. I just fix it.
Yeah.
Somehow. But I try not to mess up.
Well, so that's a cool thing, man. What I'm seeing here is you have an absolutely deep passion for making a quality product and meeting the customer's needs, which is exactly what people want when they're getting a custom board. So, I mean, that's rare in this day and age, you know. And as Jimmy mentioned, he's made boards for me. I can speak from experience. You know, when you're getting a board made custom, this is the kind of guy you want to make that board. He knows the boards he's making. He knows how they ride because he's a bodyboarder himself.
Yeah.
He has the experience riding. He has the experience manufacturing with the materials and the tools that he uses. So, you know, but along those lines, you use all the tools, but computers and technology in terms of computers, not your cup of tea so much. You focus on, you know, the physical stuff of making bodyboards, but computers aren't your thing. Is that right?
No, computers aren't my thing. You know, I use a CNC cutter.
Yeah.
Tom Murray gave me. We use that to cut some surfboards. We don't have a lot of room in the shop, so we recently took it out. I still hand shape the boards. I'll be honest, computer cut boards, they're not bad. It eliminates the work. It eliminates me having someone coming in and do this extra work. But at the same time, when the computer cuts it wrong, you can't fix it.
Yeah.
You know, there's a difference between when I cut it wrong, the bandsaw blade's about a 16th inch thick. Computer cutting blade's about an inch. So once you destroyed it with the computer, you lost 2 inches of just cutting it.
Oh, wow.
There's no more foam. So there is a difference. I've worked with Brian Peterson, where we both worked on CNC cut boards, which now, like in Indonesia, they make the Mike Stewart boards and all those are CNC cut. So you can kind of see it. The boards all look the same. There's nothing different. You're going to see the same kind of boards cut in those machines for all the different brands. So they're kind of all similar. Well, that's when custom comes into play. You know, there's ways to use a computer where you can build custom boards, but it still comes down to the hand shape.
Yep.
Using your hands, making sure the rocker's right. Say, for instance, if I'm making a board for Jay, I know he drop knees, I need to make the rocker right for drop knee. But if I'm making a board for Ben Severson, I know he rides the big wide nose boards. He wants a bit more foam up front because he likes to lean forward. He's more double elbow. So those type of boards get different rocker. And you can have those kind of designs cut on the machine, but you got to go program them in.
Yep.
And to program them in, it might take you, I could have had done the rocker already by the time you programmed them in.
Yep.
So, and not to mention the cost factor. I build custom boards one-off. I can't go spend $100,000 on a CNC cutter to build these one custom boards, you know?
Yep.
Obviously, if I'm going to spend a lot of money to build a whole bunch of boards, I can do a big investment. We can start another company and start this high-volume production. But we all know, like I said, there's only so much coastline in the world. People only surf on those coastlines. Now, if we made boogie boards for the mountains and the coast, we'd have tons and tons. We'd be millionaires, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's the whole difference. The CNC and the hand making, a lot of it's knowledge, a lot of it's cost effective, what's worth paying more for. You know, obviously machines cost a lot.
Yep.
You know, like I just told you, I'm down. I don't have a laptop now. So that just even those, I'm a hard worker. I'm a laborer. I'm kids go to school, but I never did good in school. But when it came to shaping with your hands, building things with my hands, I was really good at it. You know, even in school, I liked woodworking, all that stuff. And I think the first woodwork shop in school, I was making skateboards.
Oh wow!
You know, so it was still
we all did.
It was anything with a board involved in it. I wanted to make it. You know,
right.
So not to mention, I grew up around in Oceanside. There's some of the world's best surfboard shapers there.
Yeah,
and I'm really good friends with a lot of those guys.
That's killer.
So
the good old school craftsmanship still exists. This man, Jimmy Linville, cranking out custom boards. So we're going to wrap things up here, Jimmy. I'm so stoked that you're here. I want to say I'm going to drop a link for those of you watching on YouTube to our custom board page where you can order a JL custom from ebodyboarding.com. And for the audio podcast folks, just go to our website, go to Bodyboards, Custom Bodyboards, and you'll see the link to the JL custom form. Or, Jimmy, if they just want to contact you directly and order from you directly and talk boards, how do they reach you?
Oh, so I get a lot of messages, Facebook, Instagram, Messenger. Some guys try to email me. Emails get buried in multiple other emails. Even the social media stuff, it just gets buried in texts and emails to where if you email me, I don't respond back. It might be buried in 50 emails a couple days back. So it's really hard. The best thing I say is just message me again. And if I don't respond, message me again.
Okay, and where do they message you?
Usually on Messenger.
Okay.
Or if you get my direct number.
Yeah, so you can give out your direct number if you want.
Yeah, 760-500-0641. That's my direct number.
And your Messenger is through Facebook?
Through Facebook and JL Bodyboards on Instagram.
JL Bodyboards.
Yep. So a lot of guys will type in JL Design Bodyboards. It won't come up because there's other JL designs out there, music or whatever.
Right.
Whatnot.
So it's at JL Bodyboards. And, yep. And on Facebook, it's the same?
It's the same on Facebook. It's all linked together.
JL Bodyboards.
Now I don't have the computer now. I do everything on the phone. So it all comes to me on my phone. And I'll be honest, if I'm in the factory working on a big order like Jay's or something, I'm not by the phone. Sometimes I don't sit down and look at that thing till 9 or 10 at night. Right. So that's what it comes down to. If I'm looking at it all day, I'm not getting no work done. I'll tell you that. And that happens too. Yep. So.
Yeah, I know that about you. And, customers will say, hey, I messaged Jimmy or I called him and he hasn't called me back. I always tell them, if the waves are good or there's good fishing, you give him a couple days. Yeah, and he'll get back to you. Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, you live and die by the surf like we all do, all us old school guys. We live and breathe it. And, this man will make an epic board for you. So use one of those contact methods we mentioned earlier. I want to thank you, Jimmy, for being a guest on Real Deal Podcast. We're stoked to have you. We have some collab tribe JL boards on the site, and we do the custom boards as well, straight through Jimmy. This man's amazing. He's a great craftsman, and we're stoked to have him here. So thanks, brother.
Thanks for having me. And thanks for all the support, everyone out there. I couldn't make it without all the support for the whole community and the world, actually. From the guys in California, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, to all the different places in the world where there's bodyboarders, and there's a lot now. Yep. More than ever.
Right on. Yeah. Right on. Well, guys, thanks for watching and listening to the Real Deal Podcast. We'll see you next time.